Hello and welcome back to this video series on structured query language SQL. In this video, I would like to continue on with looking at some of the different queries we can make with the select statement. We'll take a look at a keyword called like and also some what we call wildcard characters in SQL, where we can narrow down to specific information that we're looking for. So real quick, let's jump ahead in our PowerPoint slide here. We'll get into some of this advanced SQL querying in just a moment here, but let me first go back and run a few other queries that we would find useful for our purposes here. So here I'm going to run a quick select statement on both my tables. So here select from, and then I'll say album. So here's my album table. What I want to do is I want to use this keyword called like, and like is going to allow me to narrow in on, for instance, I can do things such as find the album that starts with R, the letter R, or find any value that have an R in the second position. And so I can do really specific queries of that nature using this like command. And so let's run a query on our albums table here. And we're going to specifically we're going to play around with this album name column to specifically pull out certain albums based on certain criteria. All right, so in this query here, what we're going to do is we're going to use this like keyword. And so we'll say, first we'll do our where clause. So where do we want to basically do a search, which column we want to search on. So we'll say where, and we'll say column album name is like. And let's first do one example of where we will pull out all of the album names that start with the letter I, right? And the case in here doesn't matter whether it's a uppercase or a lowercase I. So we can say like, we can say I, and then we'll use this special wildcard character, this percentage, and then we'll execute our command. So this will pull out all of the album names that start with the letter I. And so in our case here, because we can see all of our album names, we have number 13, we have number 15. I think those are the only two. So let's execute our command and see what we get here. There we go, we have 13 and 15. Now, there's a lot of different ways we can use this here. So we can say, well, let's do with something that ends with, in this case here, let's take a look. An album name that ends with, let's say, G. So we'll do London Calling here. So in that case, we would just basically switch this here and say %G, and we'll execute it. And we have London Calling. Now we can also, let's say for instance, if we want to find a specific album that has a specific word in it, let's say that the album has the word of, or better yet, let's say if let's do on. There's two that I'm looking at that have on in it. There's Blood on the Tracks, and there's What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. So we could say on, and then we're surrounded with 2 percentage signs, and we can execute that. Well, there were multiple ones, and I think I'm not considering the ones that are on, like for instance, songs have ON, so not just pick up just a letter. But now if I put a space in here, let's see if that'll do it, and execute it. And now it does narrow it down, but if you don't put that space in between the percentage signs, it'll capture anything that has ON in the title. Okay, so that's a quick example of using the like keyword in SQL, and you can use these wildcards to narrow in on specific information. Let's take a look at a few other queries before we move into some of the advanced SQL, or some would consider advanced SQL. Okay, another keyword I would like to focus on here is, and so we use like, I want to use one called in. And so let me first execute table to get all of our albums. And let's say that we want to execute a query to only find the albums that were in specific years. So I can do something such as this here. So in, and then what I'm going to do is surround this with parentheses and say in year 1971. And then let's do 1966. So then I want to also make sure I change this from album name to, let's say, album release year. So now if I execute this query, I should get only the years 1971 and 1966. So those are just a few ways to narrow in on specific data that's in a specific column. You can use the like to pull out specific text. You can use the in specific year. Now we could say also not in those years. And so if you say not in, it'll pull all of the various albums that are not within the year of 1971 and 1966. So now if we query this, we should get back all of the years that are not within 1971 and 1966. All right, let me put a pause to this video. In the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some advanced SQL statements. So we'll take a look at this idea of what is a join, which is a clause that is used to combine rows, and what they have in common is going to be a column that, for instance, like the ID number is going to be in column between the two tables. We'll look at the group by and the having clause, and then we'll also take a look at the order by. So stay tuned for the next video.